some kind of legacy for themselves in that given year. So really quickly, before we jump into it, today's question of the day is, which player do you think is the most iconic so far in 2020? Let us know your answers in the comments down below, and also before we get started, are you always getting ganked, constantly demolished? Well, don't worry, we've got you covered. Pro Guides is the #1 proven way to quickly level up your League of Legends skills. Whether you are looking for tier lists, champion guides, coaching, or courses from your favorite pro players, Pro Guides is where you'll find them. Even players like Nightblue, Bunnyfufu, Boxbox, and Locodoco support Pro Guides, so what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description down below to start improving right now, and with all that being said, let's jump into the video. Many of us know Ekko as that mid laner who had the incredible Kassadin backdoor back in Season 3, but did you know that he was originally a top laner? Yes, back in Season 1 when Fnatic won the first ever League of Legends World Championship, Ekko was technically rostered as their top laner. The trick here though is that back then the meta as we know it today didn't exist. Having a winning lane was more important than going to a designated location, and the concept of a functioning team comp was much more of a fluid thing. The reason we say Ekko was so iconic was his almost movie-like heroic entrance into Worlds. During play-ins, Visha issues prevented him from joining his team, so Fnatic in their emergency replacement We Will Failer barely scraped through the group stage with a 1-2 record. Things were looking pretty bleak, but the next day Ekko arrived and began Fnatic's charge to victory, clutching finals 2-1 with his brand and Malzahar. Down the line, Ekko would go on to achieve many things, including his fabled Kassadin backdoor play, multiple MVP awards, and finally the creation of his own team, Origin, where he functioned as a player until he could eventually step back and dedicate himself to being a full-time owner. He has a legendary career that started right at the beginning. If you only started playing League of Legends in the past few years, Toys might be a name that you haven't heard before. Back in Season 2, European players had finally pioneered the standard meta concept that we know today, and Moscow 5 was considered the heavy frontrunner for the World Championship. Unfortunately for them, and unfortunately for M5, one thing stood in their way: the LMS team, Taipei Assassins, led by Toys. He played his first game of League back in 2011, and he almost quit for good halfway through, telling his friend that he just wasn't having any fun. Luckily, he changed his mind and gave it another shot a few hours later, and then was hooked. Toys started small, playing local tournaments in cyber cafes, but quickly drew attention to himself as a strong player worth acquiring. After a stint on a Hong Kong semi-pro team Cross Gaming with future teammate Bebe, the two were acquired by Taipei Assassins. Toys led them to an LMS championship, which gave TPA their ticket to Worlds, where Toys would earn himself as the title of the Beast of the mid lane by showing dominance on Orianna and making her the staple mid lane pick that we view her as today. They were widely considered underdogs at every single turn. Toys and TPA first took down Najin's Sword. Then, in a series that shocked the world, Moscow 5, the tournament favorites. And then when the finals rolled around, Toys had established himself as the most dominant mid laner at Worlds, and the Korean team Azubu Frost fell just like everyone else, resulting in what was perhaps the most impressive underdog story in the history of Worlds. Unfortunately, Toys was forced to retire due to carpal tunnel syndrome, but went on to be a successful coach and manager. For our next pick, and hands down the most iconic League of Legends player of all time, you know him, mid laners fear him, it's Faker. The unkillable Demon King earned this title with a slew of dominating performances over the years, and to be honest, the most impressive part about him is how he manages to be so mechanically impressive with all of that blood on his hands. Faker was scouted out of solo queue by SK Telecom T1K in Season 3, dashing into the pro scene with a 3rd place finish in his debut OGN tournament. This performance alone got him some consideration as one of the greatest players in the world, and a Korean regional victory for the following split really cemented this idea. Not only did SKT earn a spot to Worlds, but it was there in Game 5 of the OGN Summer Finals that Faker pulled off his infamous Zed 1v1 outplay against Ryu, a feat widely regarded as the most iconic play in League of Legends history.
Oh, Faker may be in trouble here. Deathmark tries to clean it up for Ryu. Oh, look at the cleanse, look at the moves! Faker, what was that?
Finally, on the international stage, Faker showed the entirety of the League of Legends world what he was capable of by leading SKT in an earth-shattering 15-3 record at Worlds, topped off with a clean 3-0 sweep in the finals. Faker's debut as a world-class mid laner in just his first pro year set the stage not only for his own legacy, but for the era of Korean international dominance. In a list that talks about Faker, it's only natural that we talk about Pawn, the man who killed Faker, because he needs to be recognized as well. Originally known as Wonseok, Pawn was picked up by Samsung Blue in October of 2013, where he would change his name and begin his legacy at the World Cyber Game Qualifiers in 2013 by solo killing Faker in lane.
Blood, Faker getting 1v1'd again.
Killing the unkillable Demon King was a strong start for him, and only served as a warning of things to come. After trading places with Dade, the mid laner for Samsung Blue's sister team Samsung White, Pawn led SSW to third place finishes in both the spring and summer OGN tournaments. After winning a tiebreaker with SKT, SSW went to Worlds as Korea's second seed. They proceeded to annihilate all of the competition. Pawn showcased some of the best assassin play the world had ever seen, and managed to style his way through Worlds with a KDA of 9.9, dropping only 2 games throughout the entire tournament. Following their victory, Pawn and teammate Deft were recruited by the LPL team EDG, alongside a handful of other well-known Korean players who also left for China in what would be known as the Great Korean Exodus. Pawn found moderate success on EDG as his next teams over the few years, KT Rolster and Kingstone Dragon X, would also be not too bad, but in September of 2019, Pawn announced his retirement as a player. Next up for Season 5, it's another famous member of SKT, Marin. He was originally brought on as a sub for SKT's sister team, but with Season 5's new role that stating no org could have 2 teams, came a new opportunity to prove that he and the newly merged SKT lineup still had what it took to carry on the SKT legacy. Despite sharing a roster with Faker, Marin was able to shine brightly through in his own way, and some people would even tell him that he outshined Faker that season. Marin's top lane play was unmatched. It was incredibly impressive because he would win his lane, dominate it, and then make a TP play and assert dominance across the rest of the map. With his outstanding talents, Marin was able to help SKT lock down a Spring Split Championship, a second place finish at MSI, and a Summer Split Championship. Now finding himself at Worlds with a thirst for glory, Marin's incredible split pushing and cross-map play once again helped SKT set a record for the least losses in a Worlds run, dropping only 1 game against the Ku Tigers in the finals for a total record of 11-1. After their championship run, Marin played in the LPL for a year and then returned to the LCK in 2017. After a mediocre Season 8 with Top Sports Gaming, Marin departed, and in January 2019, he announced his retirement from the pro gaming scene. The title of Season 6's most iconic player goes to Faker. That's right, it's Faker 2, the Fakening. Season 6 saw Faker having to adjust to another rendition of SKT, with newly acquired top laner Duke, jungler Blank, and previous teammate Poomandu stepping in to assist Koma in the coaching role. Just as before, Faker and his fresh lineup started off pretty strong. They took first place at IEM, they won the LCK Spring, and even grabbed another international victory at MSI, even though their group stage was a little bit lackluster. Summer Split was slightly less glamorous for Faker, as a reverse sweep from KT Rolster in the semifinals left him and SKT in third place. Still, they qualified for Worlds as Korea's second seed, and Faker got the chance to show everyone that he not only had world-class talent, but he had world-class stamina. The semifinal games between SKT and ROX Tigers are widely regarded as the greatest best of 5 in League of Legends history. After a 3-2 victory in which he played a pivotal role, Faker was sweating but smiling. Just 1 week later, Faker found himself entrenched in another grueling best of 5, this time in the finals against Samsung Galaxy. Just like before, Faker didn't let up, and SK2's 3-2 victory saw an unprecedented 2 consecutive world championships, making for an even more impressive 3rd total championship under the Demon King's reign. SKT was swept 3-0 in World Finals in Season 7, and Season 8 was a hard one for Faker and his team, unable to even qualify. Despite this, Faker has remained loyal to SKT, and Season 9 finally saw the return of Faker to Worlds, but after being ousted from semis, we'll have to see if Season 10 brings our glorious Korean overlord back to the podium for a 4th time. Who's that player? It's Faker! Season 7 was a mixed bag for Faker. On one hand, he received an unprecedented offer to sign with SKT again, rumored to be worth $2.5 million. That same year, he made his Twitch streaming debut to the tune of a record-setting 245,000 peak viewers. On the other hand, SKT had an extremely turbulent year in the LCK. Faker tried his best to carry his then struggling team, but it wasn't enough to win them a spring or summer split. Finally, SKT would find their form when the Korean Gauntlet arrived, making an incredible run to eke out a spot at Worlds. While most of our players on this list won Worlds in their respective year, in this case it was the act of losing Worlds that made Faker so iconic. Despite incredible performances by Faker throughout the entirety of Season 8's finals, SKT fell short to Samsung Galaxy 0-3. Seeing this player, who was so much of a legend, who was larger than life, break down in tears at the end of Game 3 was heartbreaking to say the least. Our legendary Demon King had poured his soul into this game, and a passion left a lasting impression on everyone who saw it. Faker had another hard year in Season 8, but in Season 9 we saw his return to the world stage where he and SKT met a defeat at the hands of G2 in the semifinals, and like a true champion, Faker remains determined, and we hope to see him again at Worlds in 2020 making a run for the podium. For Season 8, our choice for the most iconic player goes to Uzi. Uzi to the LPL is a better version of what Doublelift is to NA, and is even considered by many to be the Chinese ADC equivalent of Faker. Starting out his career late in 2012, Uzi is a player who many joke about being cursed. Despite being a frontrunner for Worlds every year he and his teams attended, he had never won at all. Season 8, however, was a change in pace, with Uzi and his team claiming his first ever split championship. Then they went on to find international success through winning MSI, and then secured the trifecta for themselves by winning the LPL Summer Split Championship as well. Uzi was on fire, and no one else was garnering as much attention. His quest for glory was so apparent that Riot even hyped up the cinematic for World Season 8 Rise, as it featured Uzi at the end of the video standing up and dusting himself off from the events of Worlds 2017, poised to take revenge and win 2018. Unfortunately, his curse held true, sadly, and G2 defeated RNG in the quarterfinals of Season 8 in one of the biggest upsets in Worlds history. Still today, Uzi pursues the day that he can finally break his curse, but you can't help but cheer for him. Last but certainly not least, the most iconic player from last season has to be the Rise Mad Lad himself, doinb. doinb was a relatively unknown player until he and Fun Plus Phoenix set the LPL ablaze. Whereas other players might be focusing on crushing their lane, doinb came to be known for his off-meta picks in the mid lane like Nautilus and Kled, and this allowed him to roam around the map and enable his team in ways that the opponents just simply couldn't deal with. The thing is, even on more traditional carries, he could still perform well, and he would earn what would be his and the rest of FPX's first ever Summer Split Championship.
Clap for him. We are the champions!
This victory would send doinb and his team to Worlds as the #1 seed out of China. Despite a very questionable performance in the group stage, doinb and FPX proceeded to smash their opposition in the quarterfinals, semifinals, and then finals to secure the Season 9 World Championship. Watching doinb annihilate people with Rise was incredible, and his treasured pocket pick ended Worlds with a KDA of 27.3. He's the Rise your Rise should be playing like. Anyway, that's going to conclude this video. Thank you guys very much for watching. Once again, make sure to check out ProGuides.com to take your game to the next level. We have so much content over there that we want you guys to check out, and also make sure to stay tuned to our YouTube channel every single day. Until next time, good luck on the Rift.